The shuttle door opened with a soft hiss. Jake took his first step onto Prime, the biggest military station in the Galactic Defense Coalition. He carried a small bag over his shoulder and wore the gray uniform of a new recruit. His heart was beating fast, but his face showed nothing. The docking bay was huge. It could fit 1,000 shuttles inside. Bright lights hung from the ceiling far above. Aliens of all shapes and sizes walked around, talking in strange languages and making sounds Jake had never heard before. Jake was 24 years old. He had brown hair, green eyes, and a body that was strong from years of training on Earth. But compared to the creatures around him, he looked small and weak. The first aliens to notice him were They were tall, very tall. The shortest one stood at least 7 feet high. Their bodies were covered in thick scales that came in colors of red, blue, and green. Their hands had sharp claws. Their mouths were full of teeth that looked like knives. They were the warriors of the coalition, and they knew it. A group of 5 stopped walking when they saw Jake. They looked at him the way a person might look at a small insect. Then they started laughing. The sound was deep and loud. It echoed through the docking bay. Other aliens turned to see what was happening. When they saw the human, they started making their own sounds of amusement. Jake stood still and waited. He had expected this. A large with dark red scales walked toward him. This one had scars all over his face and body, old wounds from old battles. He wore the symbols of a high commander on his chest. His name was, and he was in charge of the elite reconnaissance unit that Jake had been assigned to. Stopped in front of Jake and looked down at him. Way down. The alien was almost 8 feet tall. "This is what they sent me," said. His voice was deep like thunder. "I asked for warriors, they sent me a human." Jake saluted the way he had been taught. Private First Class Jake, reporting for duty, Commander. Did not return the salute. He walked in a slow circle around Jake, looking at him from all angles. He poked Jake's arm with one clawed finger. "No scales," said. "No claws, no fangs, no venom. Tell me, human, what exactly do you bring to my unit?" Before Jake could answer, a younger pushed forward. This one had bright blue scales and the eager look of someone who wanted to impress his superiors. His name was... "Look at his skin," said with disgust. "It is so soft. I could cut through it with my smallest claw. How has this species not gone extinct?" More laughter filled the bay. Jake noticed that other types of aliens had gathered to watch. They were there too. They were insect-like creatures with hard shells, multiple arms, and large compound eyes. Their mouths had sharp mandibles that clicked together when they were amused. And they were very amused right now. They watched from a distance. They were tall and thin, with pale skin that seemed to glow slightly. They had large eyes with no visible pupils. They were known for being calm and wise, but even they seemed to find the human interesting in a pitiful sort of way. Jake kept his face blank. He remembered what his instructors on Earth had told him before he left. The galaxy did not respect humans yet. Humanity had only joined the coalition 6 years ago. To the other species, humans were newcomers, weak newcomers, prey animals that had somehow learned to talk and build spaceships. Commander finished his inspection and stood in front of Jake again. "You will be assigned to Squad 7. They handle supplies and equipment. Try not to break anything." He paused. "And try not to die too quickly. The paperwork is annoying." This got the biggest laugh yet. Jake nodded. "Yes, Commander." Waved a clawed hand, and an alien came forward to lead Jake away. The alien was a large even for his kind. His shell was dark brown, almost black. His compound eyes reflected Jake's image 100 times over. "I am," the said. His voice was a series of clicks and buzzes that Jake's translator turned into words. "I lead Squad 7. You will follow my orders without question. You will stay out of the way. You will not speak unless I tell you to speak. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," Jake said. Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Sir, the human calls me sir, as if we are equals." He walked faster, forcing Jake to almost run to keep up. "We are not equals, human. We will never be equals. The sooner you accept this, the easier your time here will be." They walked through long corridors filled with busy aliens. Everyone who saw Jake either laughed or looked at him with pity. A few did not seem to care at all, which Jake found almost worse than the mockery. Brought Jake to a small room in the lowest level of the station. It had a bed, a desk, and a small window that looked out into space. The room was cold and smelled like metal. "This is your space," said. "Report to the supply bay at dawn station time. Do not be late." Then he left without another word. Jake put his bag on the bed and looked out the window. Stars filled the darkness, more than he could ever count. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home, his family, everything he had known before he volunteered for this mission. He thought about the laughter. He thought about the insults. He thought about the way everyone looked at him like he was nothing. Then he smiled. They did not know. None of them knew what humans really were. They saw soft skin and thought weakness. They saw no claws and thought helplessness. They looked at humanity and saw prey. They were wrong. Humans had survived ice ages. They had survived predators with teeth bigger than their heads. They had taken wolves, the most dangerous pack hunters on Earth, and turned them into loyal companions. They had faced lions, bears, and crocodiles. They had won. Not through claws or fangs or venom. Humans had won through something the other species had forgotten how to use. They had won through patience, intelligence, and a refusal to ever give up. Jake looked at the stars for a long time. Then he unpacked his bag and got ready for his first day. The galaxy thought he was weak. The galaxy was about to learn otherwise. He would not tell them, he would show them. The next morning, Jake arrived at the supply bay before anyone else. It was a large room filled with crates, equipment, and machines that he did not recognize. He started learning the names of everything, making notes on his personal device. When arrived with the rest of Squad 7, he seemed surprised to find the human already working. "You are early," said. "Yes, sir," Jake replied. Studied him for a moment with those compound eyes. Then he clicked his mandibles and turned away. "Begin the morning inventory. The human will help carry the light crates. Do not give him anything important." The other members of the squad laughed. There were 3 of them. 2 were, and 1 was a young who had been punished by being assigned to the lowest squad. None of them bothered to introduce themselves to Jake. That was fine. Jake did not need their friendship, not yet. He just needed time. Time to learn, time to adapt, time to prove himself. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a quiet voice reminded him of an old Earth saying. They had laughed at humans before. The wolves had laughed. The lions had laughed. The whole wild world had looked at soft, clawless, fangless humans and laughed. None of them were laughing anymore. 3 weeks passed on Prime. For Jake, each day was the same. He woke up early. He worked hard. He ignored the insults and laughter, and when his work was done, he trained. The station had training rooms that could change gravity, temperature, and terrain. Most soldiers used them during normal hours when the rooms were crowded. Jake used them at night when everyone else was sleeping. He ran until his legs burned. He lifted weights until his arms shook. He practiced combat moves again and again until they became as natural as breathing. No one saw him do this. No one knew how hard he worked. During the day, the abuse continued. The warriors thought it was funny to push Jake when they walked past him in the corridors. They would bump into him hard enough to knock him down, then pretend it was an accident. Jake would get up, say nothing, and continue walking. The in his squad gave him the worst jobs, cleaning waste systems, carrying the heaviest crates, working in the hottest parts of the station where even the machines struggled to function. Jake did every job without complaint. The young with blue scales seemed to hate Jake more than anyone. He would find Jake in the mess hall during meals and knock his food tray to the floor. He would call Jake names in front of crowds. He would tell anyone who listened that humans were the lowest form of life in the galaxy. Jake never reacted. His face stayed calm. His voice stayed steady. This made even angrier, but Jake did not care. There was one person on the station who treated Jake differently. Her name was, and she was the only other human there. She worked as a tactical analyst, studying battle data and helping commanders plan their operations. She was smart, and the coalition needed her skills, but they still did not respect her. Found Jake one evening in the observation deck. He was looking out at the stars, eating a small meal he had managed to keep from. "You are either very brave or very stupid," said, sitting down next to him. Jake looked at her. She was about his age, with short red hair and tired eyes. Her uniform had the symbols of her rank, but they were small and placed where few would notice them. "Maybe both," Jake said. Almost smiled. "I have been here for 2 years. It does not get better. They will never see us as equals." "Then I will change how they see us." Shook her head. "I used to think like that. I used to believe that if I worked hard enough, if I proved myself enough times, they would accept me. It does not work that way. To them, we will always be prey. Weak little creatures from a backwater planet that somehow learned to build spaceships." Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Do you know why humans survived on Earth? Our planet was full of predators. Lions, tigers, wolves, bears, they were all faster than us, stronger than us. They had claws and fangs and everything we did not have." "And yet we are here," said. "And yet we are here," Jake agreed. "Because being prey is not about your body, it is about your mind, and we never had the mind of prey. We looked at wolves and thought, I can make those mine. We looked at horses and thought, I can ride those. Every predator that saw us as food eventually became our food, our tool, or our friend." Stared at him. "You really believe we can change things here?" "I do not believe it. I know it. It just takes time." Before could respond, an alarm began to sound throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. A voice spoke over the communication system in a dozen different languages. "All senior personnel to command center. Emergency briefing. All senior personnel to command center." Stood up quickly. "That is me. I have to go." "What is happening?" Jake asked. "I do not know yet, but that alarm only sounds for serious situations. Very serious." She paused at the door and looked back at him. "Be careful, Jake. Whatever this is, it might affect everyone." Then she was gone. Jake waited in his quarters, but news traveled fast on the station. Within an hour, everyone knew what had happened. A reconnaissance team had gone missing on a planet called IV. The planet was a jungle world on the edge of coalition space. It was dangerous territory, full of hostile wildlife and unknown threats. The missing team had been sent to study the planet before a planned expansion. 7 soldiers had been on that team. 3 were confirmed dead. The others were trapped in the wreckage of their crashed shuttle, surrounded by something that the coalition feared more than almost anything else. Jake heard the name whispered in the corridors with fear. He saw tough warriors go pale when they talked about the creatures. Even, who never seemed afraid of anything, spoke the word like it was a curse. Jake found a computer terminal and searched for information about the... What he found made him understand the fear. Were apex predators, the deadliest creatures in the known galaxy. They stood 15 feet tall at the shoulder. Their bodies were covered in scales harder than most armor. They had 6 eyes that could see in complete darkness. Their claws could cut through metal. Their spines carried venom that could kill in seconds. But the worst part was their intelligence. Were not mindless animals. They were smart enough to set traps, smart enough to hunt in packs, smart enough to play with their prey before killing it. The reports said that a single could destroy an entire platoon of soldiers. The sensors on IV had detected at least 6 of them surrounding the crashed shuttle. Commander called a meeting of all available personnel. Jake was not invited, but he found a place where he could listen without being seen. "The survivors do not have much time," said, his voice heavy with emotion. "Lieutenant is among them. He is my nephew. I will not leave him to die on that planet." The room was silent. Everyone knew what this meant. Someone would have to go to IV and face the... "I need volunteers," continued. "A small team that can move fast and quiet. Get in, rescue the survivors, and get out before they can stop us." More silence. Jake watched as the bravest warriors in the coalition looked at their feet or found reasons to look away. No one raised their hand. No one spoke. The fear was that strong. Jake felt something stir inside him. It was not bravery, exactly. It was something older, something that came from deep in his human blood. The same thing that had made his ancestors face down wolves with nothing but sticks and stones. He stepped out from his hiding place and into the room. "I volunteer," Jake said. Every head turned toward him. For a moment there was complete silence. Then the laughter started. It was louder than any laughter before. It filled the room and echoed off the walls. And all laughed together. The weak little human wanted to fight. It was the funniest thing they had ever heard. But Commander did not laugh. He stared at Jake with an expression that was hard to read. "You understand what you are volunteering for?" asked. "They will tear you apart. You will die screaming in the jungle while they eat you alive." Jake met the commander's eyes without flinching. "Then I will die trying to save your soldiers. Is that not what warriors are supposed to do?" The laughter stopped. The room became very quiet again. Nodded slowly. "Very well, human. You want to prove yourself. You will have your chance. Report to the shuttle bay at dawn. You will join the rescue team." Stepped forward, his blue scales bright with anger. "Commander, you cannot be serious. This human will get everyone killed. He is a liability, he is." "He is a volunteer," cut him off. "Coalition law says that volunteers must be honored. Besides," he looked at Jake with cold eyes, "if the human dies quickly, perhaps he will distract the long enough for the real warriors to escape." More laughter, but it was quieter now, less certain. Jake saluted and walked out of the room. Behind him, he heard arguing with the commander and calling his name. He ignored them all. He had made his choice. Tomorrow, he would face the deadliest creatures in the galaxy. And he would show them all what humans could really do. The shuttle dropped through the clouds of IV just as the planet's two suns began to set. The sky turned red and orange, painting the jungle below in colors that looked like fire. Jake sat in the back of the shuttle with the rest of the rescue team. There were 5 of them in total, had been assigned to lead the mission, much to his anger. He blamed Jake for putting him in this position. The young had not stopped glaring at the humans since they left the station. Next to sat 2 soldiers named and was the same squad leader who had treated Jake so badly for the past 3 weeks. Was smaller, but known for being quick and deadly with his natural weapons. The last member of the team was unnamed. She was their medic, trained to heal any species in the coalition. Her pale skin glowed softly in the dim light of the shuttle, and her large eyes watched everything with calm attention. "The crash site is 2 kilometers north of our landing zone," said, looking at a holographic map. "We move fast and quiet, no talking unless necessary. No weapons fire unless we have no choice. They have excellent hearing. If they find us before we find the survivors, we are all dead." He looked directly at Jake. "The human stays in the middle of the group. Do not fall behind. Do not do anything stupid. If you see do not try to fight it. Just run and maybe you will buy the rest of us a few seconds." Jake nodded without responding. The shuttle landed in a small clearing and the team moved out quickly. The jungle closed around them immediately. The trees were enormous, rising hundreds of feet into the darkening sky. Strange plants covered the ground, some of them glowing with faint light. The air was hot and wet, making it hard to breathe. Everything was silent, too silent. On a normal jungle planet, there would be sounds of animals and insects. Here, there was nothing. The creatures of IV knew to hide when we're hunting. Led the way with his plasma rifle ready, and flanked him on either side. Walked behind them, her medical kit strapped to her back. Jake came last, carrying only a small sidearm that looked like a toy compared to the aliens' weapons. They moved through the jungle for almost an hour without speaking. Jake watched everything around him with careful eyes. He noticed things that the others missed. Broken branches, disturbed leaves, marks on tree bark where something large had brushed against it. The others relied on their technology. They had sensors and scanners and devices that could detect energy signatures from a great distance. But Jake had something older. He had millions of years of evolution telling him how to read a forest, how to track prey, how to know when a predator was near. He stopped walking. "Wait," Jake whispered. Turned around with an angry expression. "I told you not to speak unless." "Something passed through here," Jake said, pointing to a barely visible trail in the vegetation. "Something very large, 8, maybe 10 hours ago, moving north, same direction we are going." Looked at his scanner. "I'm detecting nothing." "Your scanner looks for energy signatures," Jake replied. "This is a physical trail. The creature was not using technology, it was just walking." Made a clicking sound of annoyance. The human thinks he knows better than our equipment. Perhaps he wants to lead the mission himself. But had come forward to look at what Jake was showing them. Her large eyes studied the ground, the broken plants, the faint marks that the others had walked right past. "He is right," she said softly. "Something was here, something big." Scales changed color slightly, becoming a darker blue. This was a sign of stress in. "Then we continue with more caution. Human, if you see anything else, tell me." Quietly. Jake nodded, and they kept moving. The jungle grew darker as the suns continued to set. Soon, the only light came from the glowing plants and the faint shine of skin. The team switched to night vision, their eyes or equipment adjusting to the darkness. Jake's eyes adjusted too, though not as well as the aliens. But he had other senses. He could hear things in the silence. He could smell changes in the air. He could feel the ground beneath his feet and notice when it changed. Suddenly stopped. Her hands went to her head and she closed her eyes. "What is it?" demanded. "I can sense them," whispered. "The survivors, they are close, very close. I can feel their fear, their pain, their hope." "How many?" "4 minds. One is weak, badly injured. The others are afraid but alive." Nodded. "Then we move faster, we." A sound cut through the jungle. It was low and deep, like thunder rolling through mountains. But it was not thunder. It was something alive. Everyone froze. The sound came again, closer now. Then another sound answered it from a different direction, and another, and another. They were surrounded. Clicked, his voice trembling. "They know we are here." Raised his weapon. "Move, now, stay together. If we can reach the survivors, we can defend from their position." The team ran. They no longer cared about being quiet. Speed was all that mattered now. The jungle became a blur of shadows and glowing plants as they pushed through the vegetation. Jake ran with them, his heart pounding. But his mind stayed calm. He was thinking, calculating, remembering everything he had learned about their hunting patterns, their behavior, their intelligence. They did not attack right away. That was strange. We're known for being aggressive. They should have struck the moment they detected the team. Instead, they were following, watching, waiting. They were being herded. Jake called out while running. "They are pushing us somewhere. This is a trap." "Shut up and run, human." "Listen to me. They are intelligent. They are not hunting us. They are guiding us toward something, toward." The ground disappeared beneath Jake's feet. He fell, rolling down a steep slope of mud and rocks. He heard the others falling too, their cries of surprise mixing with the sounds of breaking vegetation. Then he hit the bottom hard enough to knock the air from his lungs. Jake lay still for a moment, gasping for breath. Slowly, he pushed himself up and looked around. They were in a ravine. The walls were steep and covered with slippery plants. At the bottom, a crashed shuttle lay twisted and broken among the rocks. Its hull was torn open, and scorch marks covered what remained of its surface. Figures moved inside the wreckage, the survivors. "Help us," a weak voice called out. "Please help us." Got to his feet, bruised but not seriously hurt. The others rose around him, checking their weapons and looking at the walls of the ravine, looking for a way out. Then they saw the creatures emerged from the shadows at the top of the ravine. They were everything the reports had described, and more. Massive bodies covered in black scales that seemed to absorb the light. 6 eyes glowing with a faint red color. Claws that dug into the rock like it was soft clay. There were 6 of them. They did not attack. They just watched. "They led us here," whispered, her voice filled with horror. They wanted us to find the survivors. They knew rescue would come. They were waiting. The survivors are bait, realized, and now we are trapped with them. A figure crawled out of the wrecked shuttle. It was with damaged scales and a leg that bent at a wrong angle. Lieutenant, Commander's nephew. "You should not have come," said, his voice weak with pain. "The Alpha, it is smart, smarter than any ever recorded. It knew you would come. It has been waiting for 3 days, waiting for more prey." The Alpha asked, pointed to the largest shadow at the edge of the ravine. Something moved, something bigger than the other, something that made them look small by comparison. The Alpha stepped into view. It was magnificent and terrifying. Its scales were darker than night, marked with patterns that glowed with a soft blue light. Its 6 eyes burned with an intelligence that felt almost human. It stood at the top of the ravine and looked down at the trapped soldiers like a king looking at ants. Jake stared at the creature. His hand was near his weapon, but he did not reach for it. Instead, he studied the Alpha, its posture, its eyes, the way it moved. He was not seeing a monster. He was seeing something else. Something that reminded him of old stories from Earth. Stories about wolves and lions and all the predators that had once ruled his world. An idea formed in his mind. A crazy idea. An idea that went against everything the Coalition knew about. Jake took a step forward. "Human, what are you doing?" hissed. Jake did not answer. He took another step, then another, walking toward the wall of the ravine, walking toward the Alpha. Everyone watched in horror. They thought he had lost his mind. They thought he was going to die. They had no idea what was about to happen. Jake walked toward the Alpha with slow, steady steps. His heart was beating so fast he could hear it in his ears. Every part of his body screamed at him to run, to hide, to do anything except walk toward the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. He did not run. He did not hide. He kept walking. Behind him was shouting something, and were making sounds of confusion and fear, was calling his name, begging him to stop. He ignored them all. His eyes were locked on the Alpha, only the Alpha. The creature watched him come closer. Its 6 red eyes followed every movement. Its massive body was completely still, like a statue carved from the darkest stone. The patterns on its scales pulsed with that strange blue light, getting brighter as Jake approached. The others stirred at the edge of the ravine. They wanted to attack. Jake could see it in the way they shifted their weight, in the way their claws dug into the rock. They were waiting for permission from the Alpha. One signal and they would tear him apart. But the Alpha did not give the signal. It was curious. In all its long life, it had never seen anything like this. Every creature it had ever hunted had done one of 3 things. They ran, they fought, or they froze with fear. This small, soft being was doing none of those things. It was walking toward danger instead of away from it. It showed no fear. It made no aggressive moves. It was simply coming closer as if they were equals meeting for the first time. Jake stopped when he reached the base of the ravine wall. The Alpha was about 20 feet above him, looking down with those burning eyes. Up close, the creature was even more terrifying. Each of its claws was longer than Jake's arm. Its teeth could crush rock. Its body could survive weapons that would destroy buildings. Jake did something that no sane person would ever do. He put his weapon on the ground. Made a sound that might have been a scream. "Human, have you gone mad? Pick up your weapon, pick it up now." Jake did not move. He stood there, unarmed, looking up at the Alpha. Then he spoke. His voice was calm and clear. "I am not your prey." The Alpha tilted its massive head. The movement was almost like a dog trying to understand a new sound. The other became even more restless, but still the Alpha did not attack. "I know you understand me," Jake continued. "The reports say you are intelligent, maybe the most intelligent creature anyone has ever found. So listen to me. I am not your prey. I am not here to fight you. I am here for my people." He pointed back at the crashed shuttle, at the wounded soldiers hiding inside. "Those are mine. I want to take them and leave. Then your territory will be yours again." The Alpha stared at him for a long moment. Its eyes moved from Jake to the survivors, then back to Jake. gasped suddenly. Her hands went to her head and her eyes went wide. "I can feel it," she whispered. "The Alpha, it is thinking. It is actually thinking about what he said." "That is impossible," said. "Our predators, they do not negotiate, they do not think, they only kill." "Then explain what is happening right now," replied. No one could. Jake took another step forward. He was at the base of the wall now, close enough that the Alpha could reach down and grab him if it wanted to. He looked up at the massive creature without flinching. Slowly, he raised his hand. His palm was open, facing up, an offer, a gesture of peace. "On my world," Jake said, "we learned a long time ago that the strongest creatures are not always the ones with the biggest claws. Sometimes, the strongest creature is the one that knows when not to fight." The Alpha's eyes narrowed. For a terrible moment, Jake was sure he had made a mistake, sure that the creature was about to end his life in one swift motion. Then the Alpha moved. It came down the wall of the ravine like liquid shadow, its claws finding holds in the rock that no eye could see. It moved with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. In seconds, it was at the bottom, standing just a few feet from Jake. The other made sounds of confusion. This was not how the hunt was supposed to go. The prey was supposed to run. The Alpha was supposed to chase. That was the way it had always been. But the Alpha was doing something new. It lowered its massive head until it was level with Jake. Its breath was hot and smelled like copper and old blood. Its eyes, all 6 of them, studied the human with an intensity that felt like being seen for the first time. Jake did not move. His hand was still raised, still open. The Alpha brought its snout forward. Slowly, carefully, it touched Jake's palm with the tip of its nose. Behind him, someone dropped their weapon. Jake was not sure who. He was not sure of anything except the feeling of the Alpha's rough scales against his skin. Hot and alive. Real. "I understand," Jake said softly. "You are not a monster. You are a hunter, the greatest hunter on this world. But even the greatest hunter can choose when to hunt and when to let go." The Alpha pulled back. It made a sound deep in its throat, something between a growl and a rumble. It was not a threatening sound. It was something else, something that might have been respect. Then it turned and looked at the other. The effect was immediate. The smaller creatures backed away from the edge of the ravine. They made sounds of confusion and submission. Their Alpha had made a decision, and they would follow it even if they did not understand. The path was clear. Jake turned around slowly and walked back to the others. His legs felt weak, but he forced them to move steadily. When he reached, they was staring at him with an expression that was completely blank. "How?" said. It was not a question. It was a word that came out of his mouth because his mind could not form any other words. "Later," Jake said. "Right now, we need to get the survivors and leave. The Alpha gave us permission, but I do not know how long that will last." Nodded slowly, like someone waking from a dream. He started giving orders, and moved to help the wounded soldiers out of the shuttle, ran to Lieutenant and began treating his injuries. Jake helped carry the wounded. There were 4 survivors in total, and 3 others, all of them hurt, all of them staring at Jake with the same confused expression. "What did you do?" asked as they lifted him onto a stretcher. "I treated it like an equal," Jake replied. "Every predator wants to be respected. The bigger and stronger they are, the more they want it. On my world, we learned that a long time ago. The first humans who faced wolves did not run. They stood their ground and showed no fear. The wolves respected that. Eventually, they became our partners." "You think you just made a wolf out of a..." Jake looked back at the Alpha. The massive creature was still watching them, its eyes following every movement. But it made no move to attack. It just watched. "No," Jake said. "I think I showed it something it had never seen before, a creature that was not prey. It did not know what to do with that information, so it chose to let us go." They carried the survivors up a slope at the far end of the ravine, the only path they were not blocking. It was steep and difficult, but they made it. By the time they reached the top, all of them were exhausted. Jake looked back one more time. The Alpha had climbed to the top of the opposite wall. It stood there in the fading light, massive and terrible and beautiful. Its eyes met Jake's across the distance. Then it made a sound, a long, low call that echoed through the jungle. It was not a hunting cry. It was not a threat. It sounded almost like a farewell. Jake raised his hand one more time, a wave, a sign of respect between hunters. The Alpha turned and disappeared into the shadows. The other followed, melting into the jungle like they had never been there. The jungle was silent again, but this time it felt different. This time it felt like peace. Came to stand beside Jake. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I have fought in 30 battles," finally said. "I have killed enemies that would have made most soldiers run in fear. I thought I knew what strength looked like." He paused. "I was wrong." Jake did not know what to say, so he said nothing. They made their way back to the shuttle landing zone as the stars came out above the jungle. No one laughed. No one made jokes about the weak human. They walked in silence, thinking about what they had seen, wondering what it meant. The galaxy was about to change, and it was all because of one small, soft creature who had refused to be afraid. The rescue shuttle lifted off from IV and flew up through the clouds toward the stars. Inside, the survivors rested while treated their wounds. Jake sat in a corner by himself, looking out a small window at the jungle below. No one spoke to him for the first hour of the flight. They were all trying to understand what had happened, kept looking at Jake, then looking away, and clicked their mandibles in quiet conversation. Lieutenant stared at the ceiling with eyes that seemed to see something far away. Finally, walked over and sat down across from Jake. "I need to know," the said. "How did you do it? How did you know the Alpha would not kill you?" Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I did not know. I thought there was a good chance it would kill me. But I also knew that running or fighting would definitely get me killed. So I tried something different." "Something different," repeated. "You walked toward the deadliest creature in the galaxy with no weapon and called it an equal. That is not something different. That is something insane." Jake almost smiled. "Maybe, but on my world, insane ideas sometimes become the best ideas. The first human who looked at a wolf and thought I could make that my friend was probably called insane too. So was the first human who climbed on a horse or walked up to an elephant or swam with sharks. Your species does those things. We do a lot of things that other species call impossible. We survived ice ages. We crossed oceans on wooden boats. We went to our moon in metal boxes. We were never the strongest or the fastest creatures on our planet, so we had to be the... And sometimes, being smart means doing the thing no one expects." Was quiet again. He looked at his own claws, the sharp scales on his arms, the natural weapons that every was born with. "We have always believed that strength comes from the body," he said slowly. "From claws and fangs and armor. We look at humans and see weakness because you have none of those things." "I know. We were wrong." Jake met the eyes. "You were not completely wrong. Physically, humans are weak compared to most species in the coalition. We know this. We have always known this. But we learned a long time ago that physical strength is only one kind of strength. There are other kinds. Patience, intelligence, the ability to understand other creatures and find common ground with them. That has been hunted and feared for thousands of years," said. "No one ever tried to understand it. Because everyone saw it as a monster, an enemy, something to fight or run from. I looked at it and saw an intelligent creature that had never been treated with respect. Every being it had ever met had shown it fear. Fear makes predators aggressive. Respect makes them curious." The shuttle continued its flight toward Prime. Word of what had happened spread faster than the ship could travel. By the time they docked at the station, a crowd had gathered in the landing bay. Commander stood at the front of the crowd. His face was hard to read, but his posture was different from before, less dismissive, more attentive. He watched the shuttle door open and the survivors emerge. Lieutenant limped out first, supported by. Other soldiers rushed forward to help him, but stayed where he was. His eyes moved past his nephew and fixed on Jake. Jake walked down the ramp with his head held high. He was tired, dirty, and still shaking a little from what he had done. But he did not show any of that. He walked like a soldier who had completed his mission. The crowd was silent. No laughter this time. No whispers. Just hundreds of alien eyes watching the small human who had done the impossible. Stepped forward until he was standing directly in front of Jake. The commander was almost 2 feet taller. His scars seemed deeper in the station's bright lights. His presence was intimidating in a way that few beings could match. Then did something that no one expected. He saluted. It was a full military salute, the kind reserved for heroes and great warriors. The kind that had never given to any recruit in his entire career. "Private First Class Jake," said, his voice carrying across the silent bay. "You volunteered for a mission that experienced soldiers refused. You faced the deadliest creature in the galaxy without weapons. You communicated with it, earned its respect, and saved the lives of 4 coalition soldiers, including my nephew." He paused. "Effective immediately, you are promoted to specialist. You are transferred from Supply Squad 7 to my personal command unit. You will serve as a liaison with a focus on understanding and communicating with dangerous species." The crowd began to murmur. A human in the commander's personal unit. A human given a title that had never existed before. A human being treated as an equal. Jake returned the salute. "Thank you, Commander." Nodded once. "Do not thank me. You earned this, something I never thought I would say to a human." He turned and walked away, leaving Jake standing in the middle of the bay with hundreds of eyes still watching him. Pushed through the crowd and threw her arms around Jake. It was not professional behavior, but no one seemed to care. "You did it," she said, her voice breaking. "You actually did it." "I got lucky," Jake replied. That was not luck. That was something else entirely. Over the next few weeks, everything changed. The footage from the rescue mission spread across the Coalition's communication networks. Every species saw the human standing before the Alpha. They saw him put down his weapon, raise his hand, and make contact with the creature. They saw the most feared predator in the galaxy lower its head and choose not to attack. Scientists requested meetings with Jake. Commanders from other stations asked for human recruits. Historians searched through Earth's records and found stories that amazed them. Wolves becoming dogs, wild horses becoming partners, humans facing every predator on their planet and finding ways to coexist with them. The galaxy had made a mistake about humanity. They had looked at soft skin and seen weakness. They had looked at lack of claws and seen helplessness. They had not understood that humanity had survived not despite being physically weak, but because of it. Weakness had forced humans to be smart, to adapt, to understand other creatures and find ways to live with them or use them. Every predator that had tried to eat humans had eventually learned the truth. These soft, clawless, fangless creatures were the most dangerous thing on their planet. Now the galaxy was learning the same lesson. Jake stood on the observation deck of Prime, looking out at the stars. Stood beside him, along with, and surprisingly, the had become something like a friend since IV. He no longer called Jake weak. He no longer laughed. "They are talking about sending expeditions back to IV," said. "With you leading them, they want to establish communication with the pack." "That could take years," Jake replied. "Earning trust from apex predators is not a quick process." "But it is possible." Jake thought about Earth, about wolves that had become dogs, hunting alongside humans, about elephants that worked with people, about dolphins that played with swimmers, about all the connections that his species had made with creatures that should have been enemies. "Anything is possible," he said. "It just takes time, patience, and the willingness to see things differently." Made a rumbling sound. "My ancestors would never believe this. A human teaching about strength. The galaxy has gone mad." "Maybe," said softly. "Or maybe the galaxy is finally learning what real strength looks like." Somewhere far away, on a jungle planet at the edge of Coalition space, an Alpha stood at the top of a ravine and looked up at the stars. Its 6 eyes reflected the distant lights, thousands of tiny suns burning in the darkness. It remembered the small creature that had shown no fear, the being that had touched its snout and spoken to it as an equal. In its long life, the Alpha had never encountered anything like that human. Perhaps, the great predator thought, there was more to the galaxy than prey and hunter. Perhaps there were other ways to exist, other connections to make. The Alpha made a sound that echoed through the empty jungle. It was not a hunting cry. It was not a roar of dominance. It was something softer, something almost like a call. And across the vastness of space, without knowing why, Jake smiled. The laughter had stopped. The mockery had ended. The galaxy had finally learned the truth about humanity. They were not prey. They had never been prey. They were something far more dangerous, something far more wonderful. They were the species that turned predators into partners. And they were just getting started.